So day-to-day operations are what you learn in-house and possibly with a college degree. Projects, on the other hand, are something that must be technically learned. You must be proficient in them. But here's the important point that I wanted to make. Your work environment is everything. I really want you to think about this. How many companies that believe they're going to practice an agile methodology in the workplace, how many of them say we're moving to an agile format when, and frankly speaking, from a CEO's perspective, I think I know what I mean when I say senior management doesn't know what in the hell it's talking about because they don't understand what agile is. I was talking to a student who said, well, at my organization, they say we need to do projects from an agile methodology, but they won't do any of the basic principles of agile. One of which is co-locate your team. People need to be in the same room if they are going to be quickly adaptive to change, if they are going to share information quickly. In agile, we have this stuff called osmosis. And osmosis means that if everybody's basically, when everybody's in the room, someone pops their head in and says, we have a change. The product owner pops their head in and says, I have a change from the stakeholders. The change is the following. Now, who's the product owner, right? The product owner is basically the representative of the stakeholders, someone that they chose that is there for their best interest, but you, the team, only talk and communicate with them in order to get stuff done. You don't go to all these different stakeholders and all these hierarchical positions that have different seats of monopolized power. We especially see that with government entities and old school methodology frameworks that are more conventional, what we would call in project world waterfall. So agile is completely ineffective in any entity that says we're going to be agile, but we need to continue to work in the similar format we've always used, which they don't seem to understand is waterfall. It's conventional. Well, conventional is not the answer. If you want to be effective as an agile practitioner, the only way that that's going to work is if senior management is on board with the principles of agile in and of itself. And first they have to understand it. And before they can understand it, they have to understand the concept behind it. They have to be familiarized with it. And to be familiarized openly, they have to be accepting of that knowledge in the first place. And unfortunately, they're not, because that knowledge comes from subordinated positions, people who are literally organizationally, hierarchically beneath them. And unfortunately, in organizations, we get this mentality that because someone is beneath you on the totem pole, they are quite literally beneath you in their station of life. And I hate to break it to you, but I have met some of the most ethical and moral people who are at the entrant port of their career, and other folks who are somewhat questionable simply because they have an advanced degree or put in a very high-ranking position, and they go drunk with power. So I don't believe that position means that you have a higher grasp of ethics or morals or values. But at the end of the day, if methodologies like Agile are going to take hold, you have to have senior management buy-in. You have to have them understand what it means. You must co-locate a team. You can't have people scattered in their random departments. You have to have a Scrum Master, for example. For the most popular type of Agile, it's called Scrum. You have to have a Scrum Master, and you have to understand what they are. So many senior managers are under the misconception that a Scrum Manager is the project manager. You have it backwards, man. Scrum Master is, look, this is how you need to understand Agile. Everyone's on the same team. So really there's a football game, but it's a scrimmage. It's everyone's on the same team. You have the team on one side, you have the product owner and stakeholders on the other, and in the middle calling the shots as the referee is the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master's not playing the game. They are not managing anything except making sure the game's rules are being followed and played so that it remains efficient, or lean, which is another important term for Agile. People try to make the Scrum Master the project manager, and in that act alone, you have completely destroyed the entire point and the flexibility and the most important inner source of strength of agile methodology, which is its ability to be, dramatic pause, agile. It has to be flexible, it has to be adaptive to change. But it can't be when senior management says we're going to continue to do things in a similar way because, frankly speaking, I don't want to learn. I want to assume that we can do things my way and I outrank you, so it's going to have to be my way. Now, make that happen, would you? I remember seeing a part of a movie called The Aviator where Leonardo DiCaprio plays Howard Hughes, who was known to be capricious, and he would change his mind at the drop of a hat. And at one point he says, how much money will it take to make that movie again? And they said, we don't have any more money, we can't make it again. Well, just how much? And they said, oh, so many millions of dollars that we don't have. He said, well, I'll start making the movie. Go make that money, would you? You know, you can't rely on people to just go and pull off miracles while you haphazardly make things worse for the people beneath you. Howard Hughes didn't succeed because he was a savvy businessman. He succeeded because he surrounded himself with talent. Senior management is not the talent. They are the herdsmen who keep the flock moving in the direction it's supposed to go. But if you have sheep that aren't allowed to give you all of the wool that they can muster, what's the purpose of being a herdsman? You have to use the strength of your team. You have to use what advantages you have. And if you're not listening to the very experts, the very people who are telling you this must change, if you're not listening to your subordinates, I got news for you, folks. The change that needs to happen is you. And again, I have my own company, and I am well aware of the fact that everyone can be as big a putt knocker as anybody else, myself at the top of the list. But you have to sometimes be willing to do something that today a lot of us don't want to. Take that finger that we're pointing at everywhere else and turn it around and say, perhaps this is the problem. I will say categorically, the individual is the only common denominator in every problem they will ever experience in their entire life. So I have no time for people who always say, it's not my fault. Really, it's never my fault. You're right, Teflon Don, it never is your fault. It's our fault for not recognizing your inability to recognize your faults. It's okay to be a perfectionist to a certain degree, I suppose, but not if you believe you are inherently perfect, and that's what makes you a perfectionist. The end doesn't justify the means. The means or the path is almost as important as the end itself. But results matter. Intentions versus outcomes. As an economist, I don't care about intentions. Terrible things happen as a result of good intentions. I care about outcomes. I care about results. And senior managers are failing their organizations, and more especially the stakeholders they claim to be representing, specifically the shareholders. And I have a message for every shareholder in the world right now. If you hear senior management use the words lean or agile, and then you ask them what it means, and they start with the words, I think, I would strongly recommend you divest yourself of all funds you have put in that organization. If they're in charge of this agile overhaul, and they start with, well, agile means I think, you need to run for the hills, because you are in for one heck of a rude awakening. If you're lucky, things will continue at the rate they were going. If you're standardized, like most are par for the course when they try to do agile and they don't do it properly, things get worse almost immediately because the team knows what they're supposed to do. And that's really all that matters. You have to first understand everyone's role, and that starts by knowing your own. Senior management, you must understand that Agile has what's called servant leadership. It doesn't mean you have some ridiculous open door policy. Most people who say that shut their doors physically. So what is that supposed to mean? And everyone has one out of fear that if I don't, someone's going to slap my wrist. So that means nothing that you have an open door policy. The question is, are you open to receiving ideas you don't inherently agree with? And do you handle them gracefully? And I don't care what your opinion is on the individual of yourself. I care about what your subordinates say. You know, at your funeral, if the only people who have something nice to say about you are the people who outranked you, you did something very, very wrong each and every day you were at work. Because the people that worked for you didn't like you, didn't respect you, and they did not view you as an asset, and therefore, definitionally, you are an impediment. And the worst thing is, the guy in the pine box isn't going to know that. He's already dead. The lessons of the world are for we the living. The anthem of the world is, we the living for the world, and the world be for the living. Our mandate is to help our people, to help our team, to facilitate things for our experts, not to tell them their business. The most important part of communicating is listening. Ask anyone who's in a relationship with a woman, and they will tell you the one thing she wants me to do more is listen. How's that for shaking things up?